Hello everyone, welcome to today's next challenge of picking a color palette from Sarah Renee Clark's Color Cube. We are staying in tube number 2 and I'm going to select randomly the palette for today's painting challenge. Let's go ahead. I'm just going to go in here. I'm going to pick, got a couple in my hands. Well, that's going to be a fun one. I was thinking maybe we would get something a little bit more light in color, but we have these colors: lilac gray, rust, burgundy, gray, and dark blue. Today, I want to do more of a fluid liquid watercolors, liquid acrylic kind of painting and keep it very simple. What I'm going to do is only use these types of brushes, a pipette, and water, and then whatever I can find that sort of matches in here for liquid watercolors, liquid acrylics, maybe some India inks, and we'll see what I can come up to. So you're going to see that I've already taken my paper, which is the Canson XL journal, and I've turned it to a horizontal landscape position. We're supposed to be using a lilac gray, rust burgundy gray, or dark blue tones. I found pretty much whatever I could find in India inks, radiant watercolors, which are liquid, or some liquid acrylics. The Bombay white, a Bombay brown, and a Bombay blue, all India inks. These are Dr. P.H. Martin radiant concentrated watercolors. So we're going to see if slate blue will work. We've got their mahogany. And I got a little bit of crimson. We'll see if that can match up enough into that crimson field. Maybe. It might be a lot brighter than what I'm realizing. And then I have the Dalerane. I have their acrylic inks in black. And then I have it in white. And then I have it in pearlescent because, I always like to have some of that shimmer going around. And again, what I'm going to use, they're just cheap brushes that I got from Michael's. And actually, this one is a Princeton. So this is actually what people would consider a bigger or a nicer quality brush. And then I'm going to be using pipettes. And I've got a couple other extra ones here. The pipettes, sometimes these don't actually have droppers in them. So I have to use one of these to drop the inks if I decide to use the India inks. And then also this can be used to precision drop some water or to even suck up excess water if I don't want so much. So I've got my handy cloth here in case I have excess water. These are some of my card decks that I've made up, painted all of these backgrounds and some things to remind me or to challenge myself even more. Today, I want to do a horizon composition. This is a lot based on Kendra Brazzel, a Florida artist who does a lot of fluid watercolors and on her substrates. She does mineral paper. This is going to be watercolor paper. So she uses a horizon line. So I'm going to use a horizon line, but I'm going to use it already in this landscape versus portrait. I'm going to remind myself to relax and allow. I'm going to keep this simple. I'm going to let it go where it wants to go, and I'm going to let it dry how it wants to dry, and then I'm going to let it be. I'm going to challenge myself not to come back and keep adding embellishments or new layers. I want to just see what happens when I take all of this and I just drop the inks, drop the watercolors, maneuver it just a little bit here and there, and then let's see what we come up with. All right, so let me go and open up some of these bottles so they're ready to go. And then we'll get into what I mean about using these brushes and having that be the only way that the colors are going to be maneuvered on the paper. And I'm back, and to be completely transparent with all of you, there was a little bit of a mishap on the first attempt at this. This is actually going to be the second attempt doing this. You're going to notice that the first attempt bled through onto this new piece of watercolor paper that I have now taped up and prepared. I don't think I actually said what color palette we're using. So we are using card 335 from Sarah Renee Clark's Color Cubes Cube 2. The colors were lilac gray, rust burgundy, dark blue, you saw earlier, I am still sticking with these colors. I guess the good thing about this being now my second attempt with you all is I think I'm going to try, instead of a white line of acrylic inks, I'm going to do black and see if that actually um, what it brings. But anyway, let's go ahead and get this started. And what I still want to do is I'm going to bring a horizon line down about here, maybe a little bit about right here. Okay. And I am going to start out first with the Radiant watercolor in slate blue. So let's get some in that dropper, and I'm going to make a line. And I'm going to make a second line underneath it. We're going to put that over there. And now underneath it, I'm going to use the mahogany. This tends to come out a little bit on more red tone versus keeping it in that brown family, which was supposed to be rust. We'll see. All right, let's load it up. And we're going to bring this down here. And now I'm just trying to experiment without having a big two lines or even just having a break in that line. Let's put in the crimson. All right, let's try this. I'm going to put a little bit of dots here, little bit of a dot here, and then let's start a dot there. Being picky about that. Okay, you know what? Let's just go here. This is all just experimenting, just seeing what we can get to happen. This is the P.H. Martin Bombay Brown India ink. I don't have droppers for them, so I use one of my dirty droppers, and I am going to just drop. Oops, that was more than what I wanted to. That's okay. I say that a lot. But you know what? Sometimes you just have to remind yourself it is okay. We're going to put the browns down there, and let me put whatever's left back in the stopper. We'll put that in the water. Got 2 glasses of water over there. Now, what I wanted to do that was a little bit different is, now remember I have slate blue up here, the crimson, but I've got the brown tone down here, the mahogany down here. I am using, this is the black acrylic ink. I'm going to come in and I'm going to just put some dots around here. And maybe just put some dots in here. This is all about just getting to see what we're going to see with it. Dot down there. Yeah, let's go ahead. We'll just add some here. See what the black does to it. A little bit in there. Now, put that all to the side. What we're going to do now is I'm going to use this 1-inch brush. And what we're going to do is come in first, not trying to get too close to that line of inks and watercolor that I've got there. We're not going to go all the way up to the top. Same thing for the bottom here. Even though I think some of these are, yep, they're already going to be activated because there was some splatter. Now, I've gone ahead and grabbed my Princeton 3/4 stroke flat. And now what we're going to do is I'm going to just start just lightly moving through, seeing what we can get on this. Going to the dirty one. We may get mud. Who knows? I guess we're going to see, aren't we? Oh, look at it exploding. Oh, it's starting to explode. Yay. I love watching it when it just starts to take on a mind of its own. It looks like I didn't get as much close to the line down here as I would want to, so I'm just going to move it in here a little bit more. Now let's go down here. We had a little bit of an explosion of ink there. All right, so we are getting some brown tones coming in at that bottom one. Trying to see what happens if we do this. This is coming out completely different than the first one. Never get the same exact thing twice. That's a lot of water. Now, the thing that you have to keep in mind that Kendra Brazzel and others say about doing this work is just remember it takes a lot of practice to do this. Pretty much likes to kick your butt a little bit. And that's what this one's doing to me right now. It's kicking my butt a little bit. We're just going to bring some of this down. Wow, we ended up getting definitely adding that black in, which was a little bit much on the black. Got a little bit of a muddy mess in there. Now, what can I do with it? You know, you can always tilt. I know I said I was going to try and let it just work the way it wanted to work. But now I'm deciding, nope, I'm going to let it go. Let's see what happens if I go ahead and I put white in here. See, that's a maroon. Definitely a maroon going on in there. Let me see if I can grab something. All right. This is a bamboo skewer. So a lot of times you can just use these. So I'm just trying to mix this, break this down a little bit. Let's get it broken up a little bit. I'm going to let it have a little bit of a mind of its own here. Let's see what we can get it to do. I'm just using water from the water cup. And now what I'm going to do is start trying to gather up some of this extra. But I'm not digging here. This is coming out really dark. Yeah. Suck some of this in. Now, if you don't have eyedroppers, I've heard some people say that instead of getting these little pipettes, they use things from their base serums. If one of these watercolor inks runs its course, you can always use the little eyedroppers from there too. So just playing around with it. I'm trying to decide if I'm going to just let that white go. Might try something else here. Now again, this may end up being somebody will like this. Somebody may go, what monstrosity was that she just put together? Painting is always trying out. So what you're going to see with me is trying things out. A lot of times I won't paint anything until I'm absolutely sure that I know what I want to paint, how I want to paint it. And it doesn't really get me anywhere. You have to put in the time of practice. These are look at the colors. It was looking like really nasty brown, black for a while there, but adding that white in and then trying to suck off some of this excess here. Wow. I did have a lot of water down here, a lot of puddling. When I've seen other people do this, they do use mineral paper. So mineral paper won't warp. I won't say 100% won't warp, but it doesn't bend like this watercolor paper. And you know what? I'm going to use my fingers. You can use your fingers. Oh, wow. Look at that. Let's just try that. A lot up here. Let's get rid of that. I know I don't have a pretty working surface. Like sometimes you see, but this glass surface has saved me so many times because it's a lot easier to clean up my messes on them. Getting the splatter in, because I got a splatter. What would my life be without a splatter? Boring for me, but maybe you all will be like, there was no need to do that splatter, Linda. Did that. And now the other thing you could always do here too is if you wanted to break your word and not go too crazy and you were like, nope, I think I do want to do some extra, you could always throw some salt on here and see what some kosher salt or sea salt, or I've heard some people use black salt. It'll come up with some really interesting patterns. Ooh. And it's actually pretty interesting because I did put that white in there. Now that I got all that excess off of here. Do I want to try and move it around a little bit? Not quite exactly sticking with my words of let's try and get it to just let it be. And that makes it definitely the gray. Usually we don't want to have mud or have everything go black, but that is the actual color palette. It's starting to do, I don't know if you can see it. There's some blue tone in there. You can see sediment. All right. So there it is right now. We're going to let it dry, see what we come up with, see if I'll keep my word to just let it be or if I'm going to add to it. Well, I'm back. And quite honestly, it's been a little bit. I had to really think about this one because, as you can probably see here, I am not too pleased with how this came out. Now, sometimes though, I get unpleased about something the way it comes out and other people say they love it. It's got some really interesting texture that came from sediment, I guess, being in the inks that I dropped. So you see that I've moved the orientation. So we're sitting this now more in the portrait mode. I'm going to settle myself in and we're going to try and see. I'm thinking of continuing that my palette is over here. I've got some Tule Art earth tones. These are acrylic paint pens. These are the smaller size nib. These are really good acrylic ink pens. I really do like the colors that this provides. Right now, I've got the number 19 Antique Red, 6 is clay to go more with the brown. And then also I pulled 31 and 32, which are Gauntlet Gray and Light Gray. I have to have these metallics. And these are just from Craftsmart that you can pick up at Michael's. So they have a line of metallic paint pens. I've got gold, one in red. So we'll see if that comes into play. I grabbed a Posca in gray. That's with a thicker nib. I've got the Poscas in white. And then I have Micron pens, and I have them both in black, and they have different sizes of nibs, even up to a brush level. And then also I have some, whoops, sorry about that noise. Then I also have these Microns in cool gray kind of tones. Some water and some acrylic inks. I'm going to go ahead and try and see what I can do. But I'm going to do a little bit of mark making just because part of me just does not want to give up on this baby. So here we go. What are we going to do first? Because I'm going to be using some pens. We got to prime them. So, all right, stop being afraid and just go ahead and try and do this. Let's just start with this is the Micron black. It's archival ink. And it's the 0.8 or 0.5 millimeter. So let me just make sure it's going. Oh, that's going to be dark. All right. So what I had in mind was just doing some, I wanted to line the boxes up a little bit. Let's see. Why don't we make them bigger as they come up? And I can always have it be that you always come and paint in on these two. And let me go ahead and I'm just going to draw around a lot of these shapes here. And I'll come up with something else to be doing in here too. And I did have a tool that I could have run into paint and done a stencil pattern on that. But I didn't feel like grabbing a stencil today. Taking advantage of what looks like carbonation maybe. Doing a lot of circles. Just try and see what interests you. I'm going to just do a couple more circles. Some out here. You can go side. You can go in. Inside the circle, outside the circle. All up to you. Let's go ahead and do these because something's percolating in my brain. Now, that has a nice natural line going right there on it, sort of like over here. But what do I want to do with it? At one point when I was thinking of this, it was coming to me like a cityscape. See how almost like looking like windows inside like a big high rise, and how sometimes they can all have different openings, different angles because of how people have things in their windows, and how the buildings can box up on one another as they make the skyline. It's amazing what some people will come up with, and I sit there going, I didn't see that. So that's also why I'm like, let's not get too upset if I don't fully finish this right now, because something could come up later on for me. Okay, so this is number 6 of the Tule art. So this is clay. Let's see what clay looks like. Well, clay is looking pretty close to the color palette. All right, so I'm just going to go like this and start coloring some of them in. Let's see. Always come in and paint over it, because like I said, you can always paint over your stuff. I'm not digging that brown. Let's see if we just put random dots up here. If it starts helping something out a little bit. Because this is just way too dark for me. It's so heavy. And this part is lighter. And I'm trying to figure out what I want to do. Now I'm just making dots to try and see if I can get it to not look like it's a sore thumb sticking out here. Part of this was I contemplated just leaving it, showing it to you all, and going on. But then part of me knew I was avoiding it because I felt like this was, wow, right out of the gate, I have a fail. But I didn't want to give in to this. May not do one thing at all to help this out. I'm going for my metallics in a second here, people. There's too much sediment there. I can't give up on that sediment. Okay, this is that red metallic. So I'm liking all that. And this is sort of looking gold when I put that black in there. All right, let's see if we can get it to lift. Now where all the brown was, and you're like, really? Is this making art? Oh, yes, it is. Art is whatever you want. Art is whatever it wants to be. Oh, yeah, these are drying interestingly. We got a little bit, trying to get that a little bit more here. What happens if I do it on the dark ones? Okay, we got the lines going this way. Let's just do it. I want to see what it's looking like. Some of the sediment in there. What it's going to cause it to look like. Just have fun with it. At this point, if you're really not satisfied with something, then it's the time for you to go and play. Try things out that you normally wouldn't because you're too afraid, because you got something good going and you don't want to wreck an expensive canvas. This would be the perfect time to play around a little bit. So that is some of what is going on here. I am going to categorize this as a fail. However, I'm just going to have fun making marks. This is the perfect opportunity to do that. If you're still here, you can always tell me in the comments what you have done in the past. If you had something that you thought, that's ugly, I don't want to show it to anybody in public, so I'm going to go ahead and practice mark making, or practice my calligraphy, or using gouache, or I'm going to practice cutting it up and figuring out what I want to make it into in another project. I wanted to bring a little bit more color over into here, so this would be a good time to do it. Some get colored in, some partially. Now, what one do I want to do? I'm thinking I'm going to be bringing out the white. Let's see. Yeah, let's do this one. All right, let's make sure she's primed. Yep. Oh, see, that's why you always prime on the other side here. You get that puddle. All right, now move it back. Make sure you can see. There we go. That looks like the galaxy. That looks like a little bit of a galaxy going on there. That is so cool. Some of it has such cool little spots. Using some white just to try and get this to lighten up a little bit on this side. And I could, if I go inside the box that I've already drawn here in black, let's go ahead and on the outside, see how I feel about it. Again, this is not going to be perfectly opaque. Let's just have some fun here. I may just do one or two more things and then let this one rest and go on to the next one. And now I'm doing a lot of the lines here, circles here. I think I am. Let's move it around. Make sure I'm doing this right. Let's do here. Got lost in my semi pattern. I'm going to get paint on me. Here we go. Trying to think of, it's so funny how you can have all these thoughts and then the minute you sit down, you forget about all the things that you were thinking of. Okay, let's do, just doing some dots within here. Sometimes I start figuring out what I want to do once I get going. This is reminding me more of cityscapes, but also like geodes and stones. I'm not sure what more I want to do. I'm at stuck point. I added a little more to it. Might still want to think things through. How can I bring that white in here so it doesn't look like it's just floating? You might all be saying, I don't like any of that white, Linda. What the heck are you thinking of here with that white? I'm trying to think if I want to do... I've got a lot of that metallic in the red though. What are you looking like? Okay. Now, let's see. Last thing that I'm going to do, gold. Got to do the gold. Because we got a lot here. So you know what? I'm going to do something in the corner. Let's see if it just has some lightness in there so some of that can get through. Let's see. We'll get those going this way. What happens if we have them go that way? Doesn't look like I completely didn't mean to make it look like that. It just completely sprayed. This box is a little bit better. And again, just going for some of that geo kind of looking stuff. Didn't fully color them in. I'm letting you be able to see what the streaks look like there. Probably put a little bit up here so it's not just leaving down on this side. I'm just playing around. You say you're going to stop and then you just keep going. Well, this could really start to be looking horrible, but I'm now in the mood. I'm going with the flow. And so now part of me is like, let's see this through. They're just all in this one area here. Just a little bit of a hodgepodge of why would this be going over here and up into this area. Like not. Now the funny thing is, if this ends up being one of my all-time favorites down the line somewhere. Went right into the white there. See if I can force my way around it a little bit. There we go. Yeah, I'm gonna go with it. That's got some nice black sediment going on in there. Trying to get it a little highlighted. Right down in here too. I have it so that I want it to be here things are. We're moving up. I have this thing about moving things from lower left to upper right. I don't know what it is. I'm gonna have to figure that out. Just making some 8s. On this one, I'm just going where those dots wanted me to go on that. Let me put the cap on here. And with that, it's going to be a little bit darker in here. Let me stand up a little bit. See what I'm seeing here. Well, not as boring as we started. I hope that you have enjoyed following along on this. And again, this was out of Color Cube Tube, palette 335. Bring it up close again for you. Turn it over again so you can see the colors we were working within. And I think I did pretty good at keeping those colors. All right, thank you very much. Have a great day. Please remember to subscribe if you haven't. Like this video, share it, and please comment below maybe some of the things that you would have done a little bit differently. Other than that, thank you for following along and see you in the next one.